Hey everyone. So quite a day in the market between the Fed and earnings after hours, which are all over the place. We're going to get into it. Everything will be in alphabetical order. There's about 20 names that we're going to go through. A little bit more because some of them I just need to address very quickly. As always, subscribe to the channel and click notifications. Click all notifications so that you're aware of when we go, live, which we usually do at 8:45 every morning, but sometimes it's a little late or a little early. So by clicking the notifications, you'll be aware of it. So we're going to jump right into it. And again, everything will be in alphabetical order. For the moment, I'm going to have these earnings. See these lines right here? These just are from Trendspider, and they just tell me when the earnings are or came out so that I can see how it reacted to it. Because we are in earnings season. I mean, this is it. This is the week. And this is Adobe. And I had somebody looking at it today, and this is really what I told them. This is the wedge. Look at where you opened. You went up over it. You couldn't get really anywhere, right? And then you came back down at the end of the day. Well, that's after hours. So where does that really look like during hours? Not great, right? So I basically have a bar of uncertainty sitting at the top of this. That's not really where you want to be. I wouldn't be chasing this here. I'd be a little concerned. And I don't think that you have to be overly concerned. I don't think you need to worry about, the long-term trend of this. Obviously, it's a beast. But could it come back down, test this 50? Yes. See how these are starting to kind of come down a little bit? And we're starting to go through them a little more often. You have to pay attention to that. Even though the signal's there, right, where it's respecting it, the more you keep testing over and over again, it's like when I say, if you knock on a door long enough, eventually it's going to open. So I would watch this, and I'd watch the slope, because you could see how the trajectory of this was this, and now it's going that way. So just keep that in mind. I would not chase this. AMD, AMD does what it always does. It goes up when people think it's not supposed to. And today was a classic example of that. And we did a day trade in this in the community, and I'm going to walk through that trade so that people can understand why I did it in that community, and then also outside, how you can understand why we did the trade and what I saw. I just think it's important to understand. So first and foremost, in regards to today, I mean, this is pretty much it. I mean, earnings were great. Right? There was no debating. They were great. The question is, what is the stock going to do? Earnings were great back here. Stock collapsed. Earnings were great here. Stock came in. So the reason that I think that we saw this was because we really weren't that high off from the 21 day. For one, we were against a support level. And on top of that, you had a really good report with an increase in revenue. I think sequentially it was like 10%. They changed the number, quarter versus quarter. So that's a big jump. But let me just get into this. So this is the best close that you've ever had on the stock. This is the most volume that I can think of that we've had since the pandemic times, when you started jumping back here. So this is really big. This is a really big move. If you want to look at it relatively, how big of a move it is, look at this. Okay? That's on a relative basis. Last time that we saw that was July. So it's been a year. Something about this quarter is obviously pretty good for AMD. I don't know what it is about July that gets them, but it's something. So let's just go and look at this, and I'm just going to do it on a 15-minute chart. So, and I'll get rid of all these indicators. So this was what we dealt with this morning. And we were talking about this morning how this market looked like we were going to come down. And, it just had that feel to it, like we're going to open up and then they're going to bring us down. And they did. You can look at these bars. I mean, you can look across the board and see them all. So essentially what I did was just set up a very simple range. The first bar, the first 15-minute bar was my range. Then what I did was I overlaid it and said, okay. And some people say, all right, I'm going to buy if it breaks up here. I had zero interest in that because, frankly, your stop had to be here, which gets me 2 points, right? I don't really want to deal with that. So why do I want to risk 2 points for possibly 2 points? It doesn't, or a point and a half. It doesn't make any sense. So then we start heading higher. Now, there's also other indicators that you can use and that I did look at, just so we're all on the same page. And obviously there's a line called VWAP that everybody's very familiar with. And there's also something called RSI that everybody's familiar with. So we're just going to throw those in and see if you can see what I might have seen that would have been of value. So once I got to this level, I'm clearing the top of this huge, long, red, nasty bar, right? And what's happening while I'm doing that? My RSI is going right along with me, right? So my RSI is higher here, okay, than here, and I'm up, okay? So that's what you would call a positive divergence, right? You see that, okay? So it's higher here, even though the bar is higher here. So that gives me a higher degree of probability that this trade's going to work. Doesn't mean it's always going to work, just gives you a higher degree of probability. I'm above my VWAP. My line respected the VWAP here in the 15-minute on the test. So we opened here on the test, came back, tested it, went back through it, closed. Next bar is your breakout bar. From that bar, it opens low, breaks through it, rips, right? And all we did with it, my goal with this when I put it on was 95. And you can see why 95 when you look at it this way, right? So you could see why I picked 95 just using an hourly chart very quickly. You could see that, right? So that's why I picked 95 as my stop. But what we did with it was very simple. So we quantify our risk, right? So you quantify your risk and go, well, I'm not going for this ride. That's just nonsense. But I'll give it to here, 92, right, and a quarter. Let's see if that'll hold. Okay, I'm up here. All right, well, that's 93 and 3/4. You know, do I really want that? Well, yeah, it's better than 2 points. Okay, so that becomes my range. Follow me? That becomes the range that you're looking at. And then as it just moves up, every time it moved up roughly $1, I just raised the stop. And it's one way to do this. You can do it several other ways. But I just raised the stop. And all that did was just keep me in the trade, right? So then I'm not looking at 15-minute bars anymore. I don't really have to. All I have to do is just look at a 5-minute chart and go, oh, okay, it's up another $1. Move the stop up. It's up $1. Move the stop up. And then what was happening is I was moving it along with at the halves. So 97.5, 96.5. And what's fascinating about it is it works because you really didn't, you could have closed it at 95 because I said close it at 95, but you know, close it, trim, or just keep moving the stop up. So, you know, the last stop moved up was 96.5, right? And then you got up to here to 98.5, and it actually gave you a 97.5 stop. So this just played out perfectly. And I like when these do play out perfectly for obvious reasons. But I thought this was a great one for people to understand the methodology behind why a trade was done. So it should give you some clues, and hopefully you can use some of that in your own trades. So what do you do now with it? You need to just start trading it on much smaller time frames, right? To get in it and stay in it. So this is your next level. You got to clear that level, put a trade on looking at like a 1 or 5 or a 15-minute chart, maybe an hourly, but I think that's going to be too long. I mean, that's an enormous move for this stock. You could go through this chart, and you're probably not going to find too many of these that you have 10% moves. Like that's huge for that to have that kind of move. And you're talking about 7% from the open. You're not even talking about from the low to here, what that move is. I mean, here we can just do it. So, right, 10.10%. So AN is one that we've been in for a while. Tried to break out of that flag today and then just fell back into it. Didn't take out the low of the flag. I don't see anything wrong with it. I mean, is it what I wanted to do? No, but I just don't see anything wrong with AN. We'll just stay with it. It's an easy one to cover. BPA on this was 69.30. You know, it's so fascinating. I mean, and I understand that not everybody can do it, but I would make a suggestion that if you follow along with the newsletter, and there's a free copy of the newsletter in the description and in the bio, and it comes out every Wednesdays. It'll come out tonight, actually. And the reason I bring that up is the following. if you can kind of follow along, one of the key things I do in there is I always wait for the close before I get fully out of a position, because sometimes they take these stocks down and the levels that you pick are pretty significant, and they're significant for one reason or another, right? So what I want to see is I want to see the close, because that means to me where people are truly buying and selling and getting out. Just like the open is so important, so is the close, right? So today we opened at the low and just ripped, and we went right to the 71 level and we stopped. But you're still above the 21 day, and now we could go look and see where we are with the 8. And you are sitting right on the 8 and closed at the 8 at 71. So I don't think anything's resolved here. I mean, you sold down from 75 to 62. I don't know that we should be excited because we're in the middle of a big red nasty bar. It doesn't really make any sense, right? So let's see what happens with it. But it's definitely better than how we were faring when we closed yesterday. That's for sure. But I don't see this as something you need to add to or buy right there. BNTX is one that we've been in and got in again at 253. Got the first bar was 219, so we're up almost 100 points in the first trade. Now, look, it's hanging in there, but let's just go through this. And I think it's going to break it. I've been saying this, and I think it actually did close above it. But you see this blue trend line? Look, you closed right above it, right? Right above that you closed. It's exactly what you're looking for. And if you flip this trend line, you could really push. The last one that flipped like this that we'll get to is mRNA. And I'll show you that one in a little bit. But what do you do with this now? Look, this is simple. You have to just start using shorter term time frames charts to trade it. Because if you buy this off the daily, where is your stop, right? I mean, for me, all I'm doing with the stop at this point is just following the 5-day. I mean, that's really what I have to do, right? Because we've been in it, and you know, the one trade's up almost 100 points, the other one's up another 20%. So I've just been riding this 5-day, waiting to see if we ever close below it. And, you know, it doesn't seem to be like that's what's going to happen. But now that gets you at least up to 290, right? So that would get us another 30 points on the stop. But take a look at this. I mean, if you flip and you run, it could go. It could really move. It doesn't mean, I don't think that's done. Cure's one that we've been looking at for a while. It is the healthcare 3X bull shares. And we talked about how we hit these levels and then go. Well, you're flipping this, and you flipped it actually a while ago. So what do I think about this? I think it's ready to explode up. I'm not really sure why they're moving the way that they're moving. I can get rid of that arrow. It's going to bother me. So I don't know why they're moving the way that they're moving, but they are. So it is moving up. And here, like, look at this, right? I mean, it's just on fire. So you could look at this. I mean, it's definitely something to trade. I don't know that I wouldn't stay in it long term. It's just too volatile. And these 3X ETFs, you just have to be careful with, because, you know, the ETF can actually outperform if you go flat for a period of time, right? So just be aware of that. But chart-wise, this looks beautiful. I mean, you've completely broken out. And if you get rid of the indicators, right, you've gapped up, formed a little wedge here, right? And as always, you can very simply clone these lines and see where they fit. And they tend to fit usually in the same spot, right? And they form because you need the same trajectory, so you have the same angle. And then boom, look, you broke out. It's a breakout. No matter how you fold it, that's a breakout. So it can go higher. Where that higher is, this is pretty hard to tell. You could count it off. I mean, if you were going to look at it, the easiest thing to do would be take the high point, right? And then see if I have like a trough. And I do. I have a trough down here, and just see where they lay. And that gives you some indication on where you might go to. So roughly you could probably trade up 20 points, 142, something like that. That's how I would look at it. And I'm more interested in the peaks and the valleys than I'm interested in the time frame. Just how I draw the fibs. I find more value in them. So DRE is Duke Realty Corporation. You're just trading sideways. And I was asked to go over this, so I'm going over it, but this one's not very exciting. And there's some out there that I think have more potential. One that I've mentioned before is this. I think this has a lot of potential, this IIPR. I mean, as a matter of fact, I think we closed again. Yeah, you closed at a high. So I think this has a lot of potential, and I think this will continue to move. In regards to DRE, I'm basically just going flat. And it's pretty clear that if I get near the 50-day, that's really where to buy it. Ford had earnings tonight. We're going to get rid of these indicators for a moment. I just want to point this out. It was a very good report, and the stock looks like it's going to break that downward trend line tomorrow. If you break that downward trend line tomorrow on huge volume, and I expect to see huge volume considering the numbers we saw come out of Ford tonight, okay, you could see this head back to that 16 range. It could easily happen. Okay, this has been one that I have just been going over and over with, and I can't stress this enough. This is a 21-year, right, downward trend. This break above this is a secular move. It's a multi-year move. This doesn't happen often. And look, here we have that evening star. We see how it completed. This is where we're at. This is the end of the month, and we couldn't even get down to halfway of the bar. That tells you everything you need to know about this move. Right? It's possible that this month, right, that we actually close on a hammer, right? Tomorrow's Wednesday. This is the end of the month. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, all I have to do is be above 15 and you have a hammer bar, right? You're going to have a reversal there if you close above that 1508, around that level. So you just have to close over the open of the bar. And the open of the bar was what? 1491. So keep that in mind. I think this is setting up. Facebook came out with earnings and they're decelerating, and they're stating that they're going to continue to decelerate, which is pretty much the exact opposite of what anybody wants to hear when they own a growth stock. So I would tell you that this is probably just beginning to come in. You could try and play it for bounces tomorrow, but when they come out and say that we're seeing a decrease across the board, you need to really pay attention to when they're telling you that. Like, you don't really want to own growth stocks that aren't growing. And when they're telling you that they're going to decelerate quarter versus quarter and year versus year, you need to pay attention. A lot of these companies like Twitter and Facebook, they trade like media companies. And if they don't have the draw, people just aren't on there. They're just not paying up for them. So this is really what you're looking at. Okay, you're looking at about down 20 points. Okay, I thought they would absolutely crush. Personally, this is why I don't play earnings. I learned over years, just play them after. But I thought they would absolutely crush, and that's not what happened. And we're down a solid, we're down over 20 points. And when you're down 20 points like that and you don't bounce back, it usually means you're not going to have a good day tomorrow. But let's see how we open and go from there. To me, it's just an outright avoid. And if I was in this and I broke this trend line, I'd be gone. ILMN. So this is one I keep going over. I like this a lot. I actually like the other names better, the Bingo, BNGO, and PAC-B. But the charts don't look like this. And what we're really looking for is for this to flip 496.96. Let's just call it 497 and call it a day. And we tried today, but it didn't work, did it? Pulled right back down. So, and I know people are all excited because this is going on, right? The IBB, right? Look, we're breaking out today, right? We're starting to break out. Okay, that's a pretty big high, right? We've been waiting to see where leadership's going to come for the Qs. This is probably where it's coming from, right? But then you have this LABU, and that traded up a little bit today, but it's still kind of a mess. So then you look at this BIB, which is another ultra bio, and you can see that one. And this one looks better than the others. I mean, this one was up probably what? Yeah, not as much, but this chart is a lot cleaner and a lot more comparative to what's going on there. The ILMN, just do yourself a favor and just wait for that to break. As always, if you could do me a favor and simply like this video, I'm trying to get in front of as many people as humanly possible. So you can share it, but also the likes get it to a point where the algorithm picks it up, apparently. It's above my pay grade, that's all I know. The 5 and the 8 are crossing here on jets. I got asked to cover a ton of airline stocks today. So if you have very specific questions about airline stocks, I'll answer them. I'm more than happy to. Maybe there's some value in my answer. But more importantly, you have to look at this as a group. This is trading as one big group. That's it. And what's that group doing right now? The 5 and the 8 crossed, which means short term, you might get a little love and you might pop over this, okay? If you do pop over this, you're still below your long downward trend line. You've been below this trend line for more than 3 days. You've been below it for weeks. This trade is busted, right? So maybe I run up to this, but then I have this huge resistance line right up here. So maybe I get a dollar move in this, right? Okay, so a dollar move and on a $20 stock, right? It's actually not even that much, but let's just make the math simple, okay? So you're looking at roughly a 4% move. What is that going to do, right? What is that going to do to the underlying stocks? Well, it might move them a couple bucks, but it's not going to make them go right up. So I'm just showing this one out there just to get it through. Don't bottom fish these. There's a lot of stuff out there that is flying, that is working really well. And I would argue that you should focus on that. This is one that we have traded pretty extensively, and I love the name. I mean, the name's awesome. It's trading great. This is exactly what I was talking about. Let's get rid of these fibs for a moment. We can put them back on, and I want to get rid of these indicators. So this is what I was talking about earlier. Okay, this line here. Hold on one second. I don't know why we're way here. I don't want to be there. I want to be here. So this line here. Okay. From here over, and if I drew this down further, you'd see where it hits over here and here. And these are the anomalies. Here's your trend. So anyway, as you're hitting here, look what happens when you flip this level, right? Look what happened. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I understand that this one has moved a lot, but this trend line is just starting to flip like this one. So I don't know. Maybe by the end of maybe by December we'll need 4 shots instead of 3, instead of 2. I mean, I have no idea where this thing's going to stop, based upon this. If there's boosters, if there's not boosters. Again, I make levity of it. It's all above my pay grade. But what you need to understand is that we really don't know what's going to happen or where this is going to go or why this one's moving. We just know that it's moving, right? So don't overcomplicate it. Keep it simple. This one is not moving. Do not buy this one, right? I mean, which ones are moving? This is moving. My point of bringing this up again as we're talking about mRNA is that you need to focus on where the money's going. When we're focused on things like this, unless you want to be a value investor and you're trying to just get as close to the S&P as possible, that's up to you. But then just buy the S&P. But why would I play with this to try to catch a bottom when names that are in the vaccine space that are going up 6-7% a day? Like I don't, maybe it's from doing this long enough. I just don't understand the logic behind it. Maybe you want to be in a space and you're looking out long term for a year or two, and that's fine. If you're looking at a year or two for something like that, something to bury, don't look at the airlines. Buy Ford, look at it in a year. It's probably a double. I've been trying to hammer this home. People really don't truly understand the hundreds of thousands of orders they have now for EVs. They are the dominant force in EVs. They have more orders than all the other EV companies combined, period. All of them, including Tesla. So keep that in mind. I think that this is going to absolutely go through the roof. No one has pre-orders on products like Ford right now. No one. So I think this is just beginning. So let's just keep on rocking and rolling here. mRNA, let me just get through this. So I went off on my little rant. So we can just go back to this. I'm just going to draw this quick and dirty right there. Okay. So really the next level, now that we got up to here, right, and this has moved, you're going into the 4s. The 425 is really your next level based upon this. So that very well could happen. That would not surprise me in the least. And it wouldn't surprise me to watch a lot of funds realize that they're missing the boat and start to get a little FOMO here. Like how much higher does this stock have to go before they really start buying? And you have a huge spike, not a 10% spike, but a huge one. And I just think that people are going to want the name in their books. And maybe they want the name in the books by because people get to look at the holdings usually quarterly, some on a monthly basis. And what is happening at the end of this month? Or the end of this week, it's wrapping up. It's the end of the month. You might see a push in those towards the end of the month. So funds can show that they actually were in it. So I just want to point this out really quickly. A gentleman asked me to look at this ONDS. Look, 831 is your level. Watch that. If you're not over 831, don't waste your time. PDD, I know we all want to play the bottom fishing game. To me, could this bounce? Absolutely. Open was what? The low? High was what? The close? Did we have volume? Oh yeah, we had volume. Okay, so look at all that volume coming in, and we stopped at the 5. Now your next move is going to be to the 8, which is 97, and then you can get to the 21, which is 107. If you're looking for a dead cat bounce, it's probably there. So what you would do is put this trade on if it breaks out of a higher high and just start watching these key levels. And I use simple moving averages. You can use whatever you want. And then I would just have to find a way to stay in this because I'm not going to use a 13-point stop. So you might just be looking at something like if you really wanted to play this, you might have to start looking at like an hourly and go, let's get rid of all this nonsense and let's get rid of these indicators. So you might be, even this, what you could do is, it's a bull flag. So you could just use 90, just use the low point of the flag itself as your stop. It hits that, boom, you break out. Maybe it goes again. And if it does, then you just put the trade back on, right? But at least you can quantify your risk. That's it. That's more than half the battle. So PayPal after hours, it's pretty much a bear flag. You can see it here, right? After that break, we went right to the top of this bar and then you stopped. But let's get to the daily and go through this. So this is pretty much the exact opposite of what I thought was going to happen with PayPal. And it's another reason why I state that I don't really play earnings because you just don't know. I'd rather trade them after hours. I think it's just easier sometimes. So when you look at what's going on here, you really just came down really hard. And I marked this level off because I was looking at doing a trade. And then the more that I read the report, I just didn't even want to get involved. So they're missing on their earnings. They're lowering their earnings guidance. And the more troubling thing about the lowering of the earnings guidance is the fact that this is a company that put itself in a position to raise prices. So everybody going into this quarter thought they were going to blow it out, and they didn't. And now they're telling you going forward they're going to lower earnings. So you had to raise prices, and you're lowering your EPS. They're not lowering the revenue, so it just means the gross margins are coming in, right? Not what you want to see in a huge growth name. So this might be in for some pain. And that's why it just wasn't really worth it for me to take the risk. With something like this, you need to hold this point. Your whole move tomorrow, right? You need to be watching that point all day long, 275.03. That's your move. Hopefully it holds there. I don't know if we began the conference call or not yet by the time of the filming of this. Qualcomm absolutely, utterly crushed. Okay, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this have an AMD-like move tomorrow, unless they do something on the conference call. But if you read this report, they absolutely crushed and they raised everywhere. This is exactly what you want to see from a report. It's acting perfectly. And what I really like about the trade, and I'm going to just throw this caveat out there, I have a position in this. Here's your 200, here's your 50, right? You're all right in here. Here's your 50. So you're all right in here and you're all right against this level and you just came out with earnings. So this could be the first leg like we saw with an AMD today. And I really like that trade a lot. QFIN, I just wanted to cover very quickly. So let's get rid of these indicators for a moment. Okay, this looks like a big H to me, right? And now it looks like we've rejected that H, right? Okay, you haven't rejected the H till you get back over the top of the middle of the H, right? So here's your bar down. You got to get back over this. 31.25 to have a clear rejection. You don't have that yet. You have the start, that's for sure. I'm not going near these. So I don't know what, just the overnight gap risk to me is just simply not worth it. So maybe it holds, right? You have some support at the 200 day, but for me, they're not plays. They're just avoids. Avoids are short, but I would not go near this. If this rallies up to this 32 level, I'll be looking to short it. But I like the names, but with what's going on regulatory, it raises a lot of questions. So Roku, I'm just going to point this out. I expect the stock to not have a great day tomorrow, at least off the open. Hopefully they'll be able to, play it out a little differently. But a lot of people are watching Facebook's earnings to see what this is going to do and to see if they could get some guidance. And what you saw was this stock at 467.89, and now we're at 466.11. It's not where you want to be. But that being down only $1 when Facebook is down 20 leads me to believe that they haven't even begun to lighten their position. I'm not the only one that knew this and made that a trade, or would have or thought about making this a trade to trade in tandem with what Facebook is doing, I should say. Right? I have no position in this right now. And just caveat, I have a position in Qualcomm that I started tonight. But with that said, I do think that this does challenge this high again and get through. We just didn't this time, right? Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 times. Snow, I know everybody loves this name. I'm going to give you the same levels I've been giving. 272.05. You have to get at least through 272.05. You have this trend line right here, right? I got to get through it. Until I'm through that, I don't care that we think it had a great day today, up a whole 7-8 points. I think it's great. Congratulations. And you're holding this trend line. Get me through this. When are earnings? Okay, so you're stepping in front of basically a landmine if you're not out by August 10th, right? Because earnings could do this, or they could do this, or they could do, right? It's a crapshoot. So Spot, obviously, their earnings today, 223, right? 69. I actually like this trade, and it's something that I was watching today, and it's just got to get over a key level for me. This 225.28 is really my level, right? Now, there's another level here that I'll give you that you can look at, and you can watch this level as well. But here, if you get over this, right? When you get over that, which you did at the close today, actually, you're actually triggering the gap fill, right? Just by getting over that tomorrow, right? Because you need 1 day for it to close. But this started the trigger at the end of the day. Now, if I get over that high tomorrow, you're starting the gap fill. Now, it might go up, come back down, but you're starting it. And that could get you up to this 235 fairly quickly and get you in something that you're going to want to be in for a very long period of time. I mean, if you look long-term at companies that are internet-based and you want to know who's got the single largest subscriber growth that pays in the world, it's Spotify. It's not even remotely close. No one's even close to Spotify. So I like this idea a lot. And you sold down, but you saw what institutions did, and I guarantee you that's institutional buying. I guarantee it. I haven't looked at it yet, but I bet you, but if I look at the end of the day, I'll see big spikes. There we go. So it's big spikes. I got to buy it. I got to buy it now before someone comes up and upgrades it, or, before it starts getting into the gap, they have to put their trade on. And that's exactly what happened at the end of the day. So Wing, we really, look, hold on one second. We came out with earnings. Wasn't really what we wanted, right? And here you are after hours, okay? Here you are today. So that's pretty much everything that you could want from a stock, right? You gapped down and then you ran up. I wouldn't chase it, but that's an enormous move on that name. And congratulations to whoever's in it. Now, if I flip the high of this, chances are I'm going to the high of 172. So again, if I flip the high of this, the chances are I'm going to 172. Just trying to figure out which one I really want to cover the most next is going to be ZM. And you know what? Before we do that, let me just talk about this XLV. This healthcare sector is moving, yes. It is moving. So is this. Okay. XLRE, that took out a new high yesterday, and so is this. Okay, the utilities. All right, so a lot of these sectors are breaking out. The reason that I'm pulling that up and making you aware of that is this is why the S&P is not dropping as much. So, but let's get back into this. So Zendesk, 149.20. You're seeing the pop and a close over this. It can get to 155. If you're not looking for 5 points, I'd wait for the 155.61. And finally, we're going to cover Zoom here, and I want to clean this up. Here's your trend line, and now you're just basing. There's nothing wrong with what happened today, nothing. But you still are in between your 50-day and your 21-day. So that's it. Any questions, reach out. Please comment. Let me know which one of these you like the most, and we'll go from there. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.